Welcome back to Jersey Matters. In this past election, the referendum to legalize recreational marijuana in New Jersey passed by a landslide. So what does that mean for the state now? Here's my interview with the man who ran the campaign and helped New Jersey go to pot, Alex Owen, campaign manager for NJCAN 2020. First, thanks so much for doing this and congratulations on your victory.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to me today.
It was a resounding victory, but the work isn't done. I guess the hard work starts right now. They have to come up with legislation to oversee legalized recreational marijuana in New Jersey. How much will your organization be involved in that?
NJCAN itself is not actually going to be heavily involved in it. We actually, our whole job was just to get us to step one, which was passing the ballot legalization question, because this is a multi-step process. Unlike most states, when you look at like California or Colorado, where the implementation language was built into the ballot question, ours was actually incredibly broad. I think everybody is pretty aware that it was, do you support the legalization of cannabis for adult use above the age of 21? This new regulated market would be overseen by the Cannabis Regulatory Commission that currently oversees medical. And then it had some talk about, a 6.25% tax rate and up to 2% municipal taxation if deemed by legislature. And that's the entirety of the actual ballot question. So our job was just to get us to actually passing the initiative. From there, it goes much more to the advocacy, the lobbying, and that's just not really the way we're set up. Our job really was just to make sure that we got the first step of this multi-step process. Now we go into step two, which is legislation, which is where we're at right now, where people talking to the legislature having these committee meetings. And so a lot of the people that were involved with NJCAN are going to be doing a lot of outward facing lobbying and advocacy around it. But NJCAN itself is not, just because that's not the way our campaign is set up. We are a political campaign, not necessarily a lobbying campaign itself.
That's got to be so difficult for you. You get it to this point, and now you let it go, and you just hope for the best at this point.
That is the reality of my life. Is I've spent the last 6-7 months pushing to get us to this point, and now I'm trusting that, like, to use a football analogy, I got us down to the goal line. We scored the touchdown, and now I'm trusting the kicker to kick the field goal to get us to win.
Well, there was a reason this went to a referendum, because they couldn't get it passed in the first place. So there is some opposition, and that opposition hasn't gone away. It just means they have to do something. But there is a possibility that they may do some things that you don't like. Do you have any concerns going forward?
Here the biggest thing when we were talking about kind of the 2019 legislative action was a lot of the legislators didn't want to take that leap of faith because they didn't know where their districts were. And that's the great thing about where we are right now, is we actually have a game tape. I can tell a legislator from the Southern New Jersey, your district voted 67% to support this. Or another district, I could tell them, hey, it's 57%. And now they understand that, like, the will of the people in their district is behind cannabis legalization. When we did our internal polling, we had 78% support of Democrats, 67% support of independents, and also 52% of support from Republicans. Right. I've only actually identified 2 cities that we lost. And one of them could easily swing based on later arriving votes. And that's a lot of the argument that's currently going on right now, is making sure people are aware that this has such a broad range of support that the implementation and the legislation built around it has to be pushed forward, and they have to act on this.
I talked to many of the people who were against it. I talked to many people who were for it too, but we did a lot of interviews leading up to the non-vote on the issue. And one of the interviews that stuck out to me was Declan O'Scanlan. And he was all for it. He said it's going to happen, it should happen. He was concerned that it was being taxed too much and that it would not do away with the black market. You'd have the exact same problems with the black market as you had in the past. Is that a concern of yours?
No, I do agree. I think the tax rate should be something reasonable. I mean, we look at places like Illinois that has something god awful, like a 41% tax rate on cannabis. But I do think that there is the aspect of that's often missed by this is the fact that we're talking about a regulated and controlled market. The problem you have right now is if somebody goes out and buys a bag of weed, they buy it from a dealer who they don't know what type of pesticides that were used with it, if it has a mold on it, if it's contaminated, if it's laced with something.
I get all that, but you go back to the same problem that you had before. You were trying to help some people who were being adversely affected by marijuana laws. They're the same people that may not be able to afford marijuana with the taxes, or have to worry about finances, and then they have to go out and buy some from somebody on the black market. We were told all along, and I get it, and I know that you're true on this. It was because of social justice, because people were being unfairly prosecuted for marijuana. If that's the case, why do we have to tax it so much?
That is something for the legislature to decide on. That's not something I really am privy to. I personally think a lower tax rate does make sense. I think Steve Sweeney even said himself that it's not necessarily about making all the money off of one sale. It's about making sure that it's low enough that you have continuous sales, and it's the large amount of smaller sales that'll help drive the tax benefits from there. I really do believe that, this is something that should be accessible to everyone above the age of 21, obviously. But I do believe that, we should be trying to build a market towards something that allows people to be involved in this industry. Personally, it's my greatest fear that, we allow large multi-state operators come in and run this thing. And you see a lot of the problems that they've had with this in states like Illinois, where it's a very closed market. It's very hard for people to get in. And these larger groups are in there, and the large tax rate has caused a problem. But in my opinion, I think if we focus much more on a lot of smaller tax rates, I think it's going to be a lot better for the future of this industry.
So let me go backwards for a second and just talk about the win that you had and what this means to New Jersey.
This win is historic. It's actually the largest win on a cannabis legalization question in American history. I think not a lot of people are aware of this. The California was only 57%. The best that has ever happened up until this point actually was Washington, D.C. That was at 60%. We're at 67%. So this is a resounding win when it comes to cannabis legalization, even from the federal level, because we've heard you hear it from Pennsylvania, you're hearing it from New York, you're hearing it now from Connecticut and Rhode Island, that when New Jersey went, the rest of them went, oh, we need to now legalize as well. Because the reality is we're such an interconnected state. I think it was the lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania said something like 60% of their residents live within an hour of New Jersey, and it's that fear of losing all of this money coming to New Jersey that's bringing them to also a legalization kind of move. So for us, New Jersey's win was a historic win, both in New Jersey but also nationally, because we're the first race to ever break 65%.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and congratulations.
Alex Owen, campaign manager for NJCAN 2020. Still to come, want to get away? Who doesn't? But is it safe to fly? We'll tell you what you need to know next.